Okay. Okay. I can see that we're being live streamed already.
So you folks will need to unmute when you want to speak. See, everybody's got their mute on.
Hello again.
I call to order this regular meeting of Town of Gibsons Council on February 4th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. We're honored to be gathered on the traditional territories of the Skokomish Nation, and our first item is to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. All those in favor? I see enough hands. On my screen, I have two Town of Gibsons profiles kind of prioritized here, blocking. I can't see all the councillors because they're up. Is there a way to?
Mayor, there's two hosts.
Okay.
There's Lisa and myself. You might need to change your view.
To see participants, maybe.
Let's see.
I'll do my best here. Oh, view. Gallery. Okay, I see everybody now. So we've adopted the agenda, and we need to adopt minutes from January 21st, 2025, regular council meeting. I can see all the hands now. I see Councillor Kroll moving that. I'll second it. All those in favor? All those opposed? I think that was all in favor. The minutes are carried. Committee reports. We have Committee of the Whole, January 21st, 2025. There were 3 different motions from that committee meeting. I think I'll go through them one by one. First, there was a recommendation from Committee of the Whole on the OCP public engagement summary and new OCP policy direction, and that was that the recommendations in the technical memo be supported, endorsed with a couple of changes to the piece about seaside village character, and that is to consider alternatives to rather than omit that phrase. So that was our decision at Committee of the Whole, and I will just look for somebody to endorse it here. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That motion carries. 4.1.3 is the parking strategy workshop. That's simply that the parking strategy that was proposed by Urban Systems be endorsed. moved by Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? The motion carries. 4.4.4 is the gifts and issue of receipts for tax purposes, that the policy be adopted. That was on gifts and issue of receipts for tax purposes. That was brought to us by our Director of Finance at the Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Motion carries. And then there are advisory design panel minutes. We've asked that these be brought forward to council as soon as practicable now. So these are definitely worth looking at. The actual development is not before us today. So these minutes will come back, is my understanding, like we asked last time. These minutes will come back when that development comes forward for first reading. Any discussion on this? So it was more of a contentious one. I sat in on some of this meeting, and there was definitely some different considerations here among the panel. I'll ask Councillor Kroll to give us a summary as the liaison.
Thank you, Mayor White. To your point, one of the design panel members ended up having to recuse herself. The project, from what was originally presented in, I think, going back to 2018, has changed quite extensively. It's gone from a sort of a zero energy condominium complex to a rental complex. They've tried to maintain some of the sort of overall design concepts that made the project popular in the first place. One of the things that they have is they went to these quite steep peaked roofs, or they're actually sort of more like a shed roof. And the panel didn't mind the increased height, but they thought the increased height could be mitigated with slightly less pitch on the roofs. On the whole, I think the project was, the other thing was the issue with the grade of the property and parking. And the panel wanted to ensure that access to the parking area was level to eliminate, people opening car doors and having them fly open because of the grade. I think that would be addressed before the project came to for building permit. There was also some concern. The developer is very keen on maintaining the wood look that they had in the original presentation. The concern with a rental project that this would become high maintenance. And to that end, the design panels certainly endorse trying to maintain wood, but certainly would support alternate materials that had a wood look about them. I don't know if council have had an opportunity to go through the full minutes and have any further questions that I could elaborate on.
Thanks, Councillor Kroll. I mean, we don't need to be considering it at this time.
No.
Obviously, it's going to come. I expect it'll come to us later. But I would like to ask. Maybe I'll go with the Director of Planning first, just to ask what staff's impression is of if the developers spoke to planning afterwards, and if they're kind of, they're sometimes the ADP has good suggestions that the developer may just want to pursue, regardless of how council feels. And I'm wondering if they're kind of going to make some adjustments before bringing it to us, or whether we're going to see it pretty much the same design.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I think the developer, they did reach out to us after the advisory design panel meeting and asked if they should make some changes. At this point, I actually wanted to check in with you, but the message we've been giving developers is not to make any changes, to let council see the original design and let council endorse the ADP's direction before any changes are made. But just, I don't know if council saw the application, but it's for 42 residential rental units. So the original was 12, and then they changed it to 14 condo or strata units. So they've increased the number of units. They're asking for a parking reduction. The ADP supported the parking reduction. They're asking for a height increase. The ADP supported the height increase subject to some changes. So like some what did they say? They wanted to basically reduce the effect of the massing by putting in larger windows and stuff like that. And then it was a split vote on the variance, the height increase portion. So 3 in favor, 2 opposed. But you'll get the full report and the ADP recommendations for the February 18th committee meeting.
Councillor Lumley. You need to get off mute.
Working on it.
There we go.
Maybe just a clarification. I know I might have missed a couple meetings, like maybe late December, early January, but did this development, and I remember this development back when they first initialed it, the couple and everything about its design and stuff. So did it come to council with the ADP's first recommendations? Like, have we seen this yet?
No.
So, okay. All right. Is this what will happen? Like from now on, like we won't.
That was our request, but it may have been under the presumption that first reading would be ready this quickly, because this has happened twice now, I think. So we may need to adjust we did talk in December about having a consistent kind of order of operations for looking at the ADP recommendations and making sure we look at all of them and doing that early on rather than third reading. And I think our request to staff at that time was bring us the minutes right away. And I appreciate they've done that the last couple times, but we may be discovering that there is a slight awkwardness to it if the first reading isn't ready too. I don't know if what council thinks of that and what staff thinks of that, if whether maybe we should just wait until first reading to look at to get the minutes. Anyone have any thoughts? Councillor D'Andrade?
Well, I'd rather have the first meeting with the minutes and then we can discuss right away.
Okay. That's the only, I mean, that was our thinking before, so that's where we're at, Councillor Lumley. And we will see these again.
Okay. Well, I think you probably know where I'm going, but it's fine. I don't want to belabor it, but my fear is that you'll get down the road and they'll satisfy all the design like the ADP panel requirements, and then it'll come to council and council will just reject it. There's a possibility for that. So
that's exactly what we're hearing. I mean, I appreciate that's what our director of planning is hearing us on that, and has said that she's told them not to follow what the ADP is asking until it comes to council first.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then we'll consider what the ADP is recommending, and we may endorse it, we may not.
Okay. Well, so can I ask one more question?
Yep.
So when it says that they've presented recent changes, is that like changes to the original design, or has it already gone to the ADP and then they've said to make some changes and went back to the ADP?
No.
It's just from the original design.
This is from that design that was like from 2018.
Yeah,
right?
I know. So like
2019.
it's almost
go
like
ahead, Director of Planning.
I was just kind of confused because recent changes kind of means recent changes that we've seen, but it's almost like a new application in a way, is it not? Or
Yeah, I can clarify that. So this application we had notified, we had intended to bring it forward in January, and then we had some staffing issues and we weren't able to get the report on the agenda. But the developers showed up to the ADP meeting before a report was ready for the ADP, and they did a presentation on their proposal. And from that meeting, some questions came up about side yard setbacks and fire separations and whether it was sufficient or whether it was able to meet the building code. And then we went back to the ADP with a staff report, and the developers had changed it slightly. So that was the revision as they moved the building north to give better fire separation on that side yard setback. So there were some minor revisions like that. But ultimately, the building will have to meet the BC building code. And when we bring it to council in February 18th, it'll be pretty much the original new version, if that makes sense.
okay.
And council can endorse the ADP's recommendations or some of them or none of them before it's adopted.
Thanks.
No problem.
Okay. So let's move on to item 5.1, which is a proposed light intrusion bylaw that is being presented by our senior bylaw enforcement officer, who has been very busy the last couple days, no doubt, including your heroic efforts yesterday to, I'm sure you're hearing it all over. It's been front page news in the newspaper. So, I mean, thank you for your and Tamara's extra efforts to make sure that people were safe in that when you spotted a fire. And I won't force you to speak on it, our humble bylaw enforcement officer, but you can present our proposed light intrusion bylaw. Thanks. Oh, you don't look to be on mute, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry. So we've had complaints over the years about lights bothering people, especially overnight, and we don't currently have a bylaw to which to deal with it. And then very recently, we had a number of new people in a new apartment building that were affected by lights from a next door's building. And so we try to work with the owners, but no success there. And so that's why staff are looking to maybe have a new bylaw so we would have the means to deal with it going forward. So what it basically is that lights should not shine into a building in any manner that disturbs someone's rest and enjoyment. And if that were the case and we weren't able to get a resolution through just a voluntary compliance, then we would be looking at a fine potentially of $300 for that.
Thank you. This makes a lot of sense to me. There are very high-powered LED lights these days that can be very intrusive, and especially when we have higher buildings in Gibsons and they're higher up, and especially higher buildings that are right next to each other, they can be very impactful for neighbors. And I think the same applies for single-family homes too. I've seen some very high-powered lighting out there, and kind of, it's good for security, but they also having cutoffs can help and still provide security. So I like the looks of this bylaw, and I see everyone wants to speak on it, which is great. So we'll go to Councillor DeAndrade first.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thanks so much for bringing this bylaw. I think it's a great bylaw, straightforward. Yeah, I fully support all the aspects. And I think I love the connection that was made here with preserving livability, because it is a big deal. It makes a big difference to sleep in the dark or having the light. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor DeAndrade. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, this is it's a great bylaw to see, and I just wanted to comment that I like the recommendations that were made as well within that bylaw of shielded or directional lighting, because the last thing we want to do is create dark spaces, you know, as opposed to dealing with this issue. So I appreciate that recommendation that's written in the bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White, and thank you, Sue, for the work on this. One of the questions I have is with respect to the exemptions, because I know our town has tried to advocate to have with the lighting we're putting in, it tends to be down, it tends not to be sort of go everywhere totally uncontrolled. But with the move to switch from all the street lamps were on side streets were upgraded to these new LEDs, and they do in fact they perceptually they're a lot brighter. And what does where does it leave people with any voice on commenting or advocating for some sort of shading to be incorporated on these new LED streetlights?
I think that's a fair comment, and that's something I can definitely work with infrastructure on to see if there's a way to, if we were to get a complaint, to maybe address specific locations, because we certainly don't want to put security, affect that in any way, or people's ability to drive down a road or walk at night. So I think that would be a case by case basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Director of Infrastructure.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I believe that you can, on a case by case basis, request a shading from or some sort of a screen from BC Hydro. They want to do it as a blanket, and I don't think there's any opportunity to revert back to the old bulb style. But I do believe I have heard that you can specifically request shading.
Okay.
That's certainly something we can look into.
Yeah, that would be good to look into. I've heard a complaint from at least one resident right close to town hall, actually. It was her impression that there was just nothing that could be done about it. So she's running into a brick wall. So if we can find a way from BC Hydro to be more flexible about that, that would be great to be able to point people in the right direction. Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, I just had a question, like this bylaw, I guess it's like primarily aimed at like residential, right? Is it, it's not it's not including any commercial. Somebody can't complain about any type of commercial lighting. I know a lot of businesses leave lights on, have security lights and so on and so forth for security. Enjoyment of life won't carry over to somebody saying, hey, those lights are too bright inside that business or outside that business. Is it primarily just for residential, right?
Just residential.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a mover for? Yeah, I see lots of hands up. I saw Councillor Thompson first, seconded by Councillor Kroll. And this would be to move the wording on our agenda, which is first, second, and third reading to this this bylaw on proposed light intrusion. So any further discussion on this? All those in favor of first, second, and third reading? That motion passes, so it will come for adoption at a further meeting. And next we have the curbside collection waste contract award, which our Director of Finance is presenting.
Yes, Mayor White, the report is as presented. The process was fairly straightforward. The result was actually pretty encouraging from a financial and a service perspective. And so it's now before council to make the decision on whether the award should go ahead or not.
Great, thanks. Yeah, this is a arrangement that's very familiar to council. with these contractors. Councillor DeAndretti.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I support that. My question regards the Recycle BC. I don't know if something's going to come to us, but I'm just curious if there's any, where are we? Because in the summer, there was a discussion about establishing the curbside recycling program. And, well, it
Was
says,
that a council?
well, it says here in the report, right, that they reached the town. And I'm just curious because many people, they don't have the car, right? Many residents, there's no problem going to the depot. But other people that they don't have the car, it is a big deal for them. So I'm just trying to
Okay.
understand the program, but
Well, it is a separate issue, but considering it's in the report, maybe the Director of Finance is prepared to speak on it.
Yes, Mayor White, I think it should just simply be taken that any comments from council now are helpful, but staff would follow up with Recycling BC and find out exactly what it is they're offering and bring that perhaps to a committee of the whole for council to consider, you know, how that fits with their view on recycling.
Councillor Lumley? Oh, I see him.
Yeah, let's see. Oh yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, I'm glad that Councillor DeAndretti brought that up because that was my question, was that it seemed the way I read this, and I could be reading this wrong, but the way I read this is that there's a potential to change the contract to include curbside recycling, which I'm against. And my next question obviously went curiosity to the increase in the not that the increase is big or anything, but is the potential for curbside recycling included in the potential or in the increase and in this contract? Because it reads that during the contract, hey, we could just have curbside recycling. That's the way I read it. I'd like to take that out. I'd say, hey, just renew the contract at a 3.4% increase, which seems pretty low in today's state of things, right? And I'd like to not have that included in the contract, that there could be the introduction of curbside recycling. I'd like to see that removed.
Okay, that's good for discussion. I see another councillor's got her hand up on that, but we'll go to the CAO first to elaborate.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, when we first received an indication from Multi-Materials BC, they said, you know, we're inquiring if you're interested in the service, but we won't send you an actual proposal until January of the following year, which we just got it a few weeks ago. In the meantime, we had to prepare a tender and go out, and not to be presumptions on the tender without obviously getting approval from council there. So, but we wanted to be sure that we have the town has the ability to include that additional service, and without having to sort of infringe on the main agreement. That's primarily what we're securing here, is the ability to decide later if the town wants to offer that additional service. We are still in the process of reviewing that, and we'll be bringing council a report on the implications of introducing that service, costs and otherwise.
Yeah. So just for clarity, CAO, we're not paying any more for this contract just for the opportunity to consider recycling, are we?
Not at all. I don't believe that, and I don't know if William has a different opinion, but I think that our call was entirely separate process and related to Materials BBC, is essentially to continue the service we had before in the same terms and conditions.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, one reason why Gibsons has been traditionally opposed to what Recycle BC offers is what Recycle BC offers is lousy. They don't pick up all the items that we need them to pick up. So people who've been conditioned to throwing out glass and other items need to go to the depot anyway. So what's the point? I mean, what I think what our position has been this term, when we talked about our strategic plan, is that we continue to advocate to allow private subscription pickup for people who need it. That said, I mean, if Recycle BC is offering a better service, I support staff listening and presenting that to us and seeing what they have to offer this go around, and we may just reject it again. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like we've covered most of what my hand was up for. But it was particularly the Recycle BC would pay a significant portion of the program's annual cost. So if it's if we're going to take a step back and not have that portion included in what's being presented here, I'm fine to wait until we have a full package on that to review.
Okay. Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, and just to bear in mind too, like if you looked at the numbers from Seashell, District of Seashell, when they went to curbside recycling, the weights, so it goes by weight, obviously, disposal, the weights almost didn't change at all. So all it does, curbside, it doesn't even matter. Like BC could say, hey, we're going to do it for free. You're just asking for more things to be put in garbage and sent up to the landfill, which I'm assuming that our goal is not to do that. So yeah, anyway, we got to keep that really clear too, right? So you know, less recycling, more landfill. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I'll add, I mean, our contamination rates are outstanding as well, and those would definitely be out the window if we switched to the Recycle BC service. Director of Finance, and I see Councillor Kroll next.
Yes, Mayor White, I just want to clarify on the contract, the price that is offered right now to the town doesn't provide any recycling services whatsoever. All it does is it provides the opportunity for the town, if it wants to go to the contractor and say, you know what, we want to do some kind of curbside recycling, and it obliges the contractor to sort out with us how that would be done, and then they would offer their additional costs, no doubt, to do that. And then the town would compare that with or without Recycling BC if it thought that was worth the cost. So it's really as simple as that. I don't know what Recycling BC is exactly offering these days, but depending on the place and what they're doing, it covers anywhere from 50 to about 90% of the cost.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White, and I'd like to move the recommendations.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Lumley. After the motion by Councillor Kroll, any discussion on the motion which has nothing to do with Recycle BC and their services, but rather the awarding of our curbside collection waste contract to Salish Soils and AJM. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes. Thank you. And now we have a recommendation that the meeting be closed in accordance with sections 91A, K, and M, and 92B of the Community Charter. Those sections are listed on our agenda page. I'll move it. I move that, seconded by Councillor Lumley. All those in favor? The motion carries.